Welcome to this practitioner-grade explainer of 21 CFR 211 Subpart E. Today, we're rigorously examining the U.S. CMGM regulations governing the control of components, containers, and closures. Look, if you're operating within a pharmaceutical manufacturing environment, you already know this subpart is your absolute baseline for material control. Let's get right into it.
We're going to use this overarching mandate as our guiding principle today. Every input that goes into the drug, controlled from receipt. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? A failure at the loading bay inevitably compromises the integrity of the finished pharmaceutical product. You simply cannot manufacture a compliant, safe, and effective drug if you've lost control of the very ingredients and packaging materials you're building it with. It's really that simple.
Here's our roadmap. We're going to track the physical life cycle of a component, starting with the receipt of untested goods, moving into identity testing and approval, and then FIFO use and component retesting. After that, we'll cover rejections, containers, and closures before wrapping up with operational discipline and audit risks. Right, let's dive in.
Section 1. Receipt of untested components. This is the first critical step in the physical life cycle.
So we begin at the very start of the unbroken chain, the exact moment an untested component physically enters your facility. Section 211.82 dictates 6 non-negotiable operational steps that transform an unverified delivery into a tightly controlled, trackable inventory item. First up, a thorough visual inspection for container integrity and labeling. If a drum is dented or a tamper-evident seal is compromised, you need to know immediately. Next, each lot gets a unique identification. Then the material goes straight into quarantine and must be physically segregated from released stock. We also have to store it under specific environmental conditions because, as we know, excessive heat or humidity can destroy an active pharmaceutical ingredient before testing even begins. And finally, meticulous receiving records documenting the lot and date. No exceptions.
Now, I really want to emphasize this strict quarantine. This holding period is absolute. It honestly doesn't matter if operations is screaming for materials to start a scheduled run or if the plant manager is impatiently tapping their watch. Absolutely nothing progresses into manufacturing without an independent, documented release from the quality control unit. Cutting corners here? That's a direct violation of CGMP.
Moving on to Section 2, Identity Testing and Approval, Securing the Unbroken Chain.
Now, let's resolve a frequent point of industry confusion under Section 211.84. Once secured in quarantine, the material faces strict judgment. When it comes to in-house identity testing, it is strictly mandatory. You must rigorously test the identity of every single component in-house, regardless of how pristine the supplier's documentation appears. There's no getting around it. However, for other attributes like assay, purity, and conformity, there is conditional reliance. You can rely on a Supplier Certificate of Analysis, or COA, but only if that supplier has been fully qualified by your quality unit. So the overarching takeaway here? You can outsource the testing of certain attributes via a COA, but conducting your own identity testing is an unyielding requirement. Following that sampling and testing program, the QCU's formal decision absolutely must be instantly reflected on the physical inventory. Approved or rejected, the status must be formally decided by the QCU, and the corresponding status labels applied immediately. Think about it. If your physical labels don't precisely match the status in your electronic ERP system, you're opening the door to catastrophic operational errors on the production floor.
Section 3, FIFO use and component retesting. How we maximize efficiency whilst maintaining strict compliance.
Okay, so once a component is approved, it transitions to the production phase. But it's governed by strict usage and rotation rules under Section 211.86. You're likely familiar with FIFO in standard warehousing, first in, first out. But the pharmaceutical standard is FFO, first expiry, first out. This inventory control strategy ensures that approved components with the earliest expiry dates are utilized first. It's a fundamental standard we implement to minimize degradation risks before they ever reach the compounding suite.
But how is FIFO actually executed on the floor? Well, it requires 6 strict procedural steps. You've got to rigorously enforce the FIFO rotation, which fundamentally prevents older stock from being used after newer stock. Then, clear identification procedures ensure operators pull the correct component and batch. You also must perform meticulous reconciliation to track the used versus issued quantities down to the exact gram. Any returns to the stockroom, strictly segregated and controlled. And crucially, a visual pre-use check is required before dispensing anything into a batch.
But what happens if a component sits in storage too long or faces adverse environmental exposure, like a sudden power outage affecting the temperature controls?
Well, Section 211.87 provides a defined pathway. Retesting is triggered by extended storage beyond the initial retest date or exposure to unusual conditions. This retesting has to be executed per an approved formal protocol, which then supports a limited, scientifically justified shelf life extension. Obviously, the retest and reapproval must be formally documented. And it goes without saying, if the retest results are non-conforming, that mandates immediate rejection. There is no gray area here at all.
Section 4. Rejections, containers, and closures. Managing deviations and physical protections.
So, we also need to address the protocols for when materials fail testing, which are governed by Sections 211.89 and 211.94. A rejected component must be aggressively segregated and labeled to prevent accidental use. Your disposition options are strictly limited. You destroy it, you return it to the supplier, or in very rare, specifically allowed instances, you rework it. And every single rejection must be meticulously documented. Pivoting now to the final packaging that protects the product. Containers must be entirely suitable to protect the drug product from external factors. Closures must be qualified, approved, tested, and, crucially, chemically compatible, meaning they absolutely do not react with the drug itself. Plus, tamper-evident packaging is required by specific regulations depending on the product type.
Section 5. Operational discipline and audit risks. Aligning operations and quality.
Look, understanding the regulations is only the beginning. We really have to translate these rules into practical discipline. Let's reverse engineer some common FDA 483 citations to see how to protect your facility. If an auditor finds no identity test on the components you used, the operational mitigation is strictly enforcing 211.84D. If rejected components manage to re-enter your stock, you need robust physical and system segregation immediately. Cited for containers without compatibility data, you must have container closure compatibility studies on file. If FIFO isn't being enforced, implement automated FIFO picking rules in your ERP system. And if your retesting isn't documented, well, establish a written, approved retest protocol. Strictly adhering to these mitigations is completely non-negotiable.
Ultimately, success under Subpart E relies heavily on this critical interface between operations and quality. Operations executes according to approved procedures, logically pushing for speed and efficiency. Quality, on the other hand, makes independent decisions and enforces the unyielding control required for CGMP compliance. Both share a profound responsibility for meticulous documentation. Any deviations, they must be promptly communicated and investigated, never hidden. Cross-functional training ensures mutual understanding of these pressures, and a healthy feedback loop drives continuous procedure improvement.
I highly recommend using this practitioner-grade self-audit checklist to continuously audit your facility. Check that your receipt SOP and quarantine are effectively enforced. Ensure your sampling plan and methods are formally documented. Verify that identity is actually tested for every single component. Confirm QCU approvals and rejections are accurately recorded. FIFO is active. Retest protocols are followed. Rejected items are securely segregated, and your containers are fully qualified. Doing this routinely ensures that inspection readiness is a permanent state of mind, rather than a reactionary fire drill.
Let's lock in what we've covered today. These 6 core principles really must dictate the everyday actions of both operations and QA personnel on the manufacturing floor. 1. Components are quarantined until formal QCU release. 2. Identity is always tested, even with a supplier COA. 3. FIFO rotation is mandatory for approved components. 4. Retesting can extend approval, but only via a documented protocol. 5. Rejected components are aggressively segregated and dispositioned. And 6. Containers and closures must protect the product and remain chemically compatible. Before we finish, let's quickly put your understanding to the test. Under Section 211.84, is identity testing of each component optional if a COA is present? Is it required anyway, done only for APIs, or just done at retest? Think about that unbroken chain we discussed. The answer is B. It's required, even with a COA. It is an absolute, non-negotiable requirement that protects the entire supply chain, regardless of what the supplier's paperwork says. But the real question to leave you with is this. If an FDA auditor walked onto your floor right now, would your records undeniably prove that unbroken chain? Think about it. Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep pursuing operational excellence.